Here I've pulled up the sim in question, King 4-3 Rainbow. I'm checking 100% of the time. I would recommend that you guys do not add donk bets. Not only would I not recommend them for you in game, but your opponents usually don't donk bet either, so it would just make the tree less accurate. So we've checked 100% and we get this output. So you see 1.3% 3/4 pot bet. The pot size is 60 and we allowed it to bet 45, 30, 18 or check. So it almost never bets big, it almost never bets small, and it almost never checks. So when you see this output, what you can do is simplify your strategy. You can run this simulation again, but take out some parts of the tree and then compare the EV difference. So you can see right here, if you click on imposition EV, our EV is 40.741 out of 60. So we have over 2/3 of the EV. So you can run the sim again and then check the EV difference. And if the EV difference is very minimal, it's not worth considering these other sizes. Because if you, let's say, remove the check back range, you don't have to worry about what happens after you check back the flop. So you keep your strategy simple, and at the same time, you're not giving up too much EV. This, of course, is a very clear example of a board on which you can simplify. We're also going to go into a board where that would be not as simple. So once I allow Pio to only bet 1/3 pot, you see it still bets around 95% of the time. So it's important to keep on rerunning the tree. So we solved a very large tree. Now we made the tree a bit smaller by only allowing it to bet 1/3 pot. And you see that it still almost only bets 1/3 pot and barely checks. So we run it one more time, but then run it with a forced range bet, which is this sim. You see, I'm forcing it to bet 18 into 60, a little bit under 1/3 pot. And so this sim is going to be the most accurate, because if you allow the solver to bet big, it's going to mostly bet its good hands for a big sizing, which means that the smaller bet size is weaker and therefore out of position would check raise way more aggressively against the mixed strategy than if you bet your full range 1/3 pot. So the mistake you could be making is writing down, okay, Pio check raises 20% in this spot, where in reality it would check raise less because you've now included all of its strong hands. Keep on making the tree smaller and smaller. I showed you how to do it on the flop. I would only recommend using one sizing on the flop. On the turn and the river, we use many sizes and then run the tree once again until you've used a maximum of 2 sizes on the turn. And I recommend 3 on the river, but if possible, just use 2. The smaller the tree, the more accurate. Remember that, guys. Now I'm going to show you a board on which simplifying and betting 1/3 pot with your full range would not work. The EV difference would be significant. This is a board on which simplifying and betting 1/3 pot with your full range would not work. So 10-9-4 flush draw is completely different than King 4-3 Rainbow. On King 4-3, if you have a king, you can almost never be behind. Or your opponent's hand is so good that you can almost not win anymore. On 10-9-4, there's a lot more hands in either's range which have good equity against each other. So out of position on this board is going to have a ton of 10s to defend the big blind, a ton of 9s, a few 4s, tons of hands like King Queen, King Jack, Jack 8, 8-7, 8-6, Jack 7, flush draws, good ace highs. It's very difficult for villain to have absolutely nothing. And there's a lot of turns and rivers that change the board. So on those types of boards, we tend to bet bigger. Our range is pretty strong, but so is our opponent's, so we want to charge him. So what you see on 10-9-4, I've allowed it to bet 1/3 pot, half pot, 3/4 pot, and even overbet the flop. And you see that the overbet is really the only sizing it uses. That's pretty interesting. I bet that a lot of you would not have guessed that. That's why it's important to use many different sizes so you don't miss any of that. I would say that using 3/4 pot or full pot rather than overbet is not hugely significant, But betting third pot with your full range is, as you can see, it only bets 1/3 pot 2.6% of the time. We also have to account for people's mistakes. Let's say out of position never check raises, which is a significant mistake. Let's see what happens then. So I solved 10-9-4 with no check raise as well. And not check raising is not even realistic, because even people who under check raise the flop don't check raise 0% of the time. So when villain never raises, you see Pio Solver starts betting way more often. I mean, it checked in the 40s in the other sim. Here it bets full range basically. But you see that the overbet is still more dominant than this third pot bet. So imagine if people just under check raise. You can do that with note locks. You can study and use your opponent's strategies against them. So you can input, let's say, 8% check raise on a certain board rather than 20, and even pick the exact hands you think your opponents are check raising. You have to be careful with your assumptions though. So you see, against no check raise range, we still mostly overbet the flop. So betting 1/3 pot against somebody who doesn't check raise is still not a viable strategy. Going back to the original sim, now again it's time to simplify. You see that these sizes are almost never being used, so we're going to throw them out. We're going to run the sim again and then study it. So I've run the sim one more time, one sizing now. To keep it simple, I've only allowed Pio Solver to bet full pot. And you see it still checks a little bit over 40% of the time. And now is when we start studying.